In this video, I will be stepping through a guide on how to use the Open Payments client library. I'll be creating a small Node.js script that makes all the Open Payments requests necessary to make a successful payment between two test wallet users. So let's dive right into it. As you can see here, I have a project set up already and the Interledger Open Payments package installed, and I've imported a created authenticated client function, which will help us create a client that does all of the signing of the requests necessary. So, and I've also outlined some steps that may seem familiar to you from previous videos, where it shows everything necessary to create a step to create a payment from the initial request of getting a grant for an incoming payment to the final request of creating an outgoing payment. And we'll use these as a guide to help us delineate the steps in the code. So first things first, we'll actually create the authenticated client. If you recall, there's a few things that a client needs to in order to work. So one of them is the wallet address URL, right? This is how the client identifies itself to others. We have the private key, right? This is the thing that actually does the signing of those requests. And because a particular wallet address may have multiple public keys linked to it, we need to specify which is the actual key that we are using in requests from the client. So these three things we need, we can actually get from the test wallet. So in the test wallet, I've just set up a new account and a default account. So it's in US, and I have the default payment pointer, or I guess payment pointer with this syntax, but these are wallet addresses because they are Open Payments enabled. So I have the wallet address, the default created one. I made two under the same account which we will use to send money between. Again, this is all linked to the same account, but this will still work, of course, and it'll be easier to see everything happening under one account as we write the script. So what we want to do now is actually get some key information in order to use this wallet address as our client wallet address. So if we go to the developer keys section, we can see that under each wallet address, there's a few actions I can take, one of them being the generate public and private key. So what it does is it returns if I click on it, and let's All Payments Client Tutorial. And what this will do is we'll save the private key locally to my machine. It'll also print it here, and it will attach the public key to a wallet address such that I can use the private key to sign a request, and the public key is available to verify that the requests coming from the client that I've created are in fact from the client. So even though the file's saved, I can just copy this private key. I'll go back to my repo. I will make a new file, and I'll just paste it in here. So now we have the private key in our repository. We will also, you can see here that we have the key ID, so I'm going to copy this over as well. I'll paste it in here. The private key, the name, and the file path is just key, and we have the wallet address URL. I'll copy from here, and the client takes syntax like this. It doesn't take the payment pointer syntax with the $, so everything must follow with the HTTPS. Okay, great. So we've everything's ready from now on to make requests and to make sign requests going forward. So that's the first thing we want to do is let's fetch the information for the sender and the receiver. So we can do this by going like this. So let's say the receiving wallet address will be fetched like this. So now if you see, there's a few methods available on the client itself. One of them is being the wallet address. So I can just call get on this, and I'll provide the URL of the wallet address that I want to fetch. So if we go back here, and let's go to home, And let's say that we want to set up a scenario where sending money from Jane to John. So I'll copy over John's wallet address and I will paste it in here. Okay, so now what should happen is we are able to fetch John's wallet address. So let's print it out and then let's run the script for the first time. So in this case, I just need to do this. And as you can see here, I have made a request to get information about this John's wallet address. I see that the public name is John, straightforward, and it's in USD asset of USD under asset scale 2. This means it's all the items are delineated with let's say 2 decimal points. So anything, for example, 1,000 payment in asset will be actually 10 US dollars. We can get to that in a bit, but and we have a few properties here. We have the auth server. This is where we'll make all the grant requests to, and the resource server for this wallet address is where we'll make all the resource requests to. So for example, create an incoming payment. Great, okay, so now we can, we've got the receiving wallet address, and we can also do the same thing for the sending wallet address, just so we have all the information here. I do very similar here, get URL, and I know it's just Jane, so I'll copy it over. And let's just say we want to print the same out, just so we know that works. Let's run it. And very similar right there. We know that they're part of the test wallet, so they both share the same auth server and resource server. But again, you can have, as long as the open payments is enabled on, could be enabled for a different wallet or how to say, a digital wallet. These will look different. In any case, now we're ready to set up our actual, let's say, payment. So the first thing we need to do, right, before we know that there's 3 resources we need to make. We need to make the incoming payment, we need to make a quote, and we need to make an outgoing payment. Before we do that, right before each request to a resource, we need to get a grant for that resource. So let's do the first thing. So we need to get we know we need to create an incoming payment on the receiving wallet address. So what we can do is something like this. So incoming, right? And if you want to fetch a grant, you do this, and you say request the grant. First, the first parameter is going to be an object with the URL. So this is where I'm sending the grant request to. And we know that this needs to be for the auth server on the receiving wallet address, right? Because the auth server is the thing that kind of controls and protects the resources. So if you make requests to the resource server, under the hood, really, it would make sure that the payment, the request actually is coming from a client that has those the access. But in our case, right, we need to provide it with the receiving wallet address auth server. And the second parameter for this request is access token. And what this means, we're saying, please give us an access token with access, and this is now it becomes an array here of type incoming payment and the actions we want to make on the incoming payment. So there's a few actions here, right? There's the complete incoming payment, create list, read, etc. We can, in our case, we just want to create the incoming payment. So we will say my action in this case is only for creating incoming payments. You can see here how the access is actually an array. This means that you could, in theory, request multiple accesses per grant and have those encoded in the grant. But for the sake of simplicity, we're asking for a grant with an access token to make create incoming payments on the resource server. Great, so let's do the same thing. Let's just log it out and incoming payment grant, and let's run. So we see here the access is actually kind of, I know it's an object here, but it's really this, and we can see that we have the value of the access token already, and we can go ahead and use this access token to do the incoming payment. So as you see, the grant was given to me automatically, like there wasn't any interaction with the user needed, because right, it's a decision that the authorization server can make, but in our case it's basically a grant that didn't require authorization on the part of John, because money is coming in, money isn't being leaving the wallet address. But again, this is up to individual authorization servers to decide how they want to manage what is an interactive grant and what is a non-interactive grant. In any case, we'll go forward, and we can start with creating an incoming payment. So this is the one that actually sets up, right? This is the placeholder for where all the incoming funds will go. So what we can do is incoming payment, and very similar to the other requests, we can say incoming payment create, for which URL, for the resource server of the recipient wallet address. So we have the receiving wallet address, the resource server, and now that we have the access token, we also need to provide it. Incoming payment grant access token value. And the second parameter to this function is an object with and you can see also this in the specifications. This is the request body for creating incoming payment. So in our case, I know I want to create it for the receiving wallet address, right? I specified this resource server for this wallet address. I'm creating incoming payment, and I can also specify here already an incoming amount. So the asset code. So this is like which what currency is defining basically what it is. I can say it's for right. We know that it's US under the hood, but again, we can just, this is a more let's say generalizable solution. And asset scale, and we also can specify an amount here, right? If you remember from here, right, the asset scale is 2, so this means it's delineated in let's say with decimal point moved up 2 points. So in our case, if we provide this means that we are creating an incoming payment on John's account for $10 or 1,000 cents. And great, okay, now that we have it, we can also print it out. Again, you in an ideal situation, right, you only need to ask for this grant one time, maybe, and then you can keep extending the life cycle of the grant. But because we're just writing one script only, we're going to do each step every time. It's a bit repetitive, but I think it's simpler for us to do at this point. So I can also, let's run it again. I get the fetch wallet addresses, and now, as you can see here, I've created the incoming payment, right, with this ID, for this wallet address, for this incoming amount. And something you'll notice here is that there's a methods. All right, so this shows how you can actually pay into the incoming payment, right? Right now you can only pay over Interledger protocol, but again, Open Payments is it sits on top of different payment methods, right? This is a interpretable layer. So we have the ILP, so that's the incoming payment is showing us how two parties can pay into the incoming payment. Okay, we can actually check, we can actually go and see if this was created in the test wallet. So go back here. We can see that on John's payment pointer, we actually have a pending payment for $10. So this is what we want. This is exactly what we want. Of course, no money has been sent into it because we still need the outgoing payment, right? That's at the final step. But we see that it's working. We see that there is already an incoming payment was successfully created on John's account. Okay, so now that we have the incoming payment set up, right, we've sort of done everything that needs to happen on the recipient side, and now we need to shift our focus to the sender. So for this situation, we need to create a quote. Like anything, quotes like any other resources, we need to get a grant for the quote. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a quote grant. We're going to request a grant, but make note here, right? This isn't we're done with the receiving side of things. So now we do this, right? We're asking for a quote for a grant on the sending wallet address. Also follows very similar fashion as the any request, but now instead of providing type open payments, we'll specify type quote, and the actions that we can take are again create. For us, we won't be making any more requests other than creating, so we can just say for our case, create is fine. Great. Okay, so now we have the quote grant, and we'll jump right away into creating the quote itself. So I can do this. We'll assume that the quote grant worked before, but we'll just make a request. So I'm having a quote, create a quote URL, the sending wallet address with the access token from above. So we have the quote grant access token value. You see how it doesn't complete here is because we're kind of taking a small shortcut here. Ideally, you would have to check whether this is an interactive, non-interactive grant. We're kind of, skipping ahead a little bit, but this is sufficient for our use case right now. Right, the second argument is a request body for the quote creation, and right, similar to previously, but now on the sending side, right, we're specifying that we want to create a quote on this sending wallet address. The receiver is the incoming payment, right? We're checking how much a quote, how much it will cost to pay into that incoming payment. And right now we'll have to pay over ILP, right? This is how you actually move the funds. Again, open payments is about like orchestrating and initiating funds and setting up everything, but how the money actually moves is still done at a lower level, if you can say this. Okay, great. So we have the quote, and let's see that it works. Again, because we're running the script every time, we're gonna get a lot of incoming payments, but that's fine. We're just using this to test. Request timed out. It's fine. And okay, so we've set up another incoming payment. We have a quote now. As you can see, it's a quote for Jane's wallet address, and we have the receive amount. Right, this is the same as the incoming amount for the incoming payment, but now there's this field of debit amount, and it shows how much it actually will cost Jane to make a payment into this incoming payment that is visible here via the receiver. Great. Okay, so now, and also the other thing is the quotes they're pretty short-lived, so I think it depends on the resource server, but in our case it's a few minutes. Great. Okay, so now we have the quote, and this is useful information for the user, right? This is the information that we can pass along and show to the user. The final step, right, for the sending party is we need to create an outgoing payment. In order to get an outgoing payment, we need to get a grant for it. So let's do the same thing. I'm actually going to come up and we'll copy over this just so we don't have to type it out. And let's get this grant. Okay, now what you will see here, going payments grant. What you will see here is, again, making a request to the auth server sending wallet address, but now we'll say outgoing payment, actions we will be creating, and with an outgoing payment grant, right, because these are the kind of the most, let's say, sensitive ones, right? This is the one where money is actually being pulled out of users' accounts, right? So we want it to be, requires the most, let's say, being careful around it. So in the grant, because the grant system is quite flexible, we can actually encode different things into it other than just actions and type, right? We can also say limits, and this is necessary for the outgoing payment grant. You don't want to create a grant that will allow you to make, infinite amount of outgoing payments. There needs to be some sort of limit on it. So we can say this grant gives us access to create outgoing payments up to a certain amount, and the certain amount we can just use from the quote. Right, in this case is going to be $10 with a few cents, and final thing is identifier. So previously we kind of made grants for a generic resource server to be able to make incoming payments, but for an outgoing payment we have to specify who the user is actually, for which user or which wallet address is this grant relevant for. So we can say this is for the sending wallet, specifically for this sending wallet address. So this looks correct, and because we know this in our system that this is actually an interactive grant, what we can say is, and this can actually be provided in each grant request, but we're treating the outgoing payment grant a little more specifically. We can say the interaction, how we can start interaction is by redirecting a user to a certain web page to go ahead and fill out give out consent. So this is how we specify which interaction to point to the resource owner, in this case the sending wallet address or the sending party. Great, let's actually print this out. And well, it should be outgoing payment. I'll just outgoing payment grant. And let's print this. Again, we'll go through all the steps again, but it's okay. Timed out, I think, I guess because I'm recording. Okay, so as you can see here, the outgoing payment grant request looks a little different now than what it was for the quote and for the incoming payment, right? We don't have the access token directly. Instead what we have is an interact property, which is an object that has the redirect, and this is a URL. This is a URL for going in and actually accepting a particular grant. So if I put it in here, and right, if I'm already logged in, so if this was another user, we'd actually have to log into the wallet address, into the test wallet, or any wallet, right? This is basically being able to, give consent to access on your wallet address. And then if we click in here, what we'll see is give us a bit of time. And what we'll say is, this is actually right. You see under Rafiki Money, this will be in a production environment. This is the wallet or the digital wallet or the bank where you have an account on. But what they'll say is the Open Payments tutorial, right? This is the wallet address that we have configured originally, is requesting access to make a payment on your behalf. With this is the wallet address for the client, and it says the total amount to debit is $10.11. This is right. We took that from the quote and put it in here. So I, as the user right now, I'm kind of like acting on behalf of the client and the two users. But say I'm the sending user, I would hit accept here. right now it just says accepted. There's actually a way to be able to redirect you to a page, but because we're just making a client that is software, there's not really a page to redirect to. And so we kind of need to separate the first part of setting up the payment, and then the final step would be actually finalizing the payment. So at some point, right, we need to go in and open this link and be able to accept the grant and then come back to the script. So we can kind of, for this case, we can kind of get around this. Maybe we'll just add some sort of artificial interaction within the script itself, and then we can, after going into the site and accepting, we can come back and continue our script. So we can do this through using the standard library from Node.js called readline. And what we'll do now is just go back up front to our imports, and basically what we want to do is do the first, let's say, part of the script, and give us time to then keep running it, but with some sort of user interaction. So what we'll do, have a readline, and we'll go to the part where we need to do the interaction. So let's say that readline, so we create an interface. I believe it is something like this, where we have the input and it's just our process standard in, and then the output is process standard out. This is going to just print to the console. And what we're going to do is, we don't really care too much about what we would type in here. We just want to kind of pause the script. We'll just say, please accept grant, and press enter. And this will kind of give us a sort of an artificial break in the script. And we can see that we can check that it works after going through the steps again. Having some internet trouble. And as you can see, it gives us the interact, and it continues the script, and then I'll press enter, and then from there we can finalize the final bit of the payment. Great. Okay, so the final step is we need to, with an interactive grant, we need to create the initial grant, or I guess make the initial grant request, accept it, and we need to, let's say, finalize it or continue it in open payments lingo. So we can do this by doing something like this. So we can just say finalized outgoing payment grant, and you can say grant continue. Right, our URL is, now make note, I haven't talked about what this field means, but essentially it's just a way for you, a URL for where you can manage your continue grant. So we will use it from above. We can say the outgoing payment grant that we have from before, continue URI, and again you also see that there's an access token for the continuation of a grant, and we will provide that as well. So it's the outgoing payment grant continue access token value. Great. So now what this should give us is the final access token to go in and make an outgoing payment. And let's assume that it's everything's working here, and let's do the final outgoing payment. I'm going to print this first just to make sure that it worked. Final outgoing payment grant, and here's the final piece that brings it all together. Client outgoing payment, create URL. Right now we're creating a resource, so we're putting this on the resource server of the sending wallet address. We have the access token now from the finalized outgoing payment. Right, again, I'm kind of assuming that we have it. We'll can check it, but we're assuming that we have this. And finally, we have it for the wallet address, the sending wallet address, for which quote? For the quote that we have previously. And that's essentially it. After this, we'd be able to move the money between the between the outgoing payment to the incoming payment after getting user approval. After getting the approval from the user interaction. And let's run it all the way through. So get the wallet addresses. Now I'm going to just copy this over, come back to here. I'm going to accept this grant again, while this script is still waiting. Again, right, the code hasn't really changed. Or I guess this is a new quote, but now we're just making a new request. I'm going to hit accept, and now I can say I've accepted the grant, hit enter, and great, we've created the, as you can see here, we continued the grant, we received the access token here, and we've created the outgoing payment. So again, this is for this receiver for initial incoming payment that we have set up, for the Jane's wallet address, and it has some information about the amounts. And again, it's under the hood, it's more of a asynchronous process, so that's why it doesn't get sent automatically. But we know that we can go ahead and check now in the test wallet to see that the money has actually been moved between the accounts. So let's go back here, and if we hit refresh, so as you can see here, we've set up, this was the initial incoming payment, right? This is money in, and we've paid from Jane's money coming out. So essentially, again, this is still part of the same account, but for all intents and purposes, we've created an incoming payment on John's account, an outgoing payment on Jane's account after going through the interaction, and money was moved. So, and all this was done programmatically with the Open Payments client. And that is it. So I will share this code, and yeah, this was the tutorial. Of course, we have all the specifications on openpayments.guide, and yeah, thank you very much